even no matter what we think about the value of the AI generated stuff, it's going to be here and everybody's going to be using it. Like there will be games that have everything done with AI, the code, the storylines, the character designs, everything full AI. Those are games that are going to hit the marketplace.
Welcome to a new episode of XR and AI Spotlight, the show where we give the stage to the makers and founders who are pushing the boundaries of XR and AI. My name is Gabriele Romagnoli, I'm your host, and I'm here today with JUSSI Kempainen. JUSSI has over 24 years of experience as a game designer, director, 3D and VFX artist, and has embarked on a journey to create a full game with the help of AI. Echoes of Somewhere, now available as a demo on the project page and soon coming on Steam. From environments to characters, he has been sharing his workflows and journey publicly, triggering excitement and skepticism on the future of AI-assisted game development. Stay with us to learn how he approaches the discovery of new generative AI tools.
I usually have like a goal in mind when I pick up a new tool. Like I would like to make an icon, or I would like to make a location or a character concept or a vehicle design. And then I see if that tool takes me to that goal in like 15 minutes, like as soon as possible.
His recommendation for game developers on how to integrate AI into their workflows.
See, I think people should experiment with it and kind of see if they can in any way use it in their workflows. But I wouldn't necessarily want everybody to go as hard on it as I have in my project.
And his controversial theory on how AI will impact small game developers versus big studios.
I have a couple of friends who are really afraid of big studios pushing out the craft people from the work. But I have a theory where...
But before we get into it, I want to thank our sponsor Meshi, who made this episode possible. Meshi is a real powerhouse for generating 3D assets with AI. You can start with a simple text or image prompt and get high-quality, stylized model in just a minute. One feature that I personally love is the ability to create stylized textures for any mesh, with or without UV. And since the release of Meshing 2.5, pro users can even edit only sections of the generated textures with just a text prompt. Try it out, go to meshi.ai, start the 7 days trial, and after that, use the code XRAI20 to get 20% off your subscription. And now, let's welcome JUSSI under the spotlight. So, JUSSI, it is a great pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, let me start probably with a question that everybody's asking, and that is, why use generative AI in the development of your game?
It began as a kind of harmless experiment to see if I could save some time, because I was doing this game. I was doing a hobby adventure game project, and the project kept on getting stuck with me just having to make all the art, and it took so long to do that stuff, and I never got to making the game. And when the first DALL-E 2 came out in 2001, was it already, or 2002 in the summer, and then Midjourney also came out, the second and the third iteration. And they were the quality was horrible, but I was thinking maybe I could, because I really wanted to make this game and I just didn't have enough time. So I was figuring maybe I could use those tools to help me actually make the game. Even if the art would be horrible, I would just be able to do a game, and I could maybe work around those limitations of the tech. But then the AI technology kept getting better and better and better. And then at one point I just did like this, I just went for it. I took some time in the Christmas holiday and I did like a first quick prototype on how would a character that was based on AI made character designs fit an AI generated background, and how could I composite these together so that they would match stylistically together nicely. And it went quite viral. And from there on, I kind of realized that this is something that people kind of are interested in seeing. So at that point, I kind of pivoted into more of this like a public experiment on how could you do a game using AI tools. Like I wanted to kind of see what the future would, like one possible future, what could it be? What could game development look like if AI tools were just accepted and widely used? So that's kind of the
Inception of it.
Inception of it, like in a nutshell. Like just first it went from me trying just to be able to have a hobby, and then it went to me trying to do this sort of like a research project on what this would mean for me, because I come from a game art background, done it for a long time, and like, is this something that I should feel threatened about? Is this something that I can use to my advantage, or is this something that will eventually replace me?
Well, so from here, we're going to basically touch all of these topics from the experimentation with initial workflow to indeed the role that had in you publicly developing this, right? This is also like a key point that you mentioned, a transition point, at least for you, or more of a trigger, right?
Yeah.
So, and then of course, is this a threat? Is this an opportunity? And how can we balance? And in general, also as creatives, as companies and teams, address this. So maybe starting from the first discovery phase, right? You mentioned Midjourney, you mentioned DALL-E. I'm pretty sure that you use many other tools and workflows. So how do you evaluate and experiments with these new generative AI tools for your workflow? What process have you developed?
I usually have like a goal in mind when I pick up a new tool. Like I would like to make an icon, or I would like to make a location or a character concept or a vehicle design or whatever it is. So I have a goal that I have in mind, and then I see if that tool takes me to that goal in like 15 minutes, like as soon as possible. If it doesn't get me there, if I don't see any benefit from it, or if it's too cumbersome to use, like I did try to use Comfy UI and local builds of Stable Diffusion and kind of get that going, like this really, really advanced stuff. But then again, I got into the art creation treadmill, because then it becomes a big job. So I usually just try a tool, and if it works almost like magic, like if it just gives me a good result almost out of the box, then I usually enroll it as a part of the pipeline. It's almost like this kind of min-maxing how little time I can use on asset creation.
Yeah, because the other point is, how good do I want this to be? Because that is always the trade-off, right? I mean, when is that for you at some point this was, let's say, good enough?
I think it's good enough for me when I don't try to shy away from the AI artifacts and all those little telltale signs. It's like if you make a game with claymation style, or if you make a game that looks pixel art, you never try to hide the tool. You kind of present the tool, and that's the aesthetic. So with this game, the aesthetic is AI art, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to make the game look crappy because all the new AI tools do too good work. So I have to kind of knowingly kind of scale back and introduce these garbled text. Like I don't want any text to be readable. I want this to be just like gibberish. So it's a balancing act. So that's kind of
you are at the point where you have to back edit what AI now spits at you to add the gibberish with weird letters again.
I have to like to go to great lengths to be able to mimic the style of Midjourney version 4 for everything.
Right.
But yeah, it's but what's good enough, it's I've been giving myself freedoms with that, and that's the biggest caveat of, I think, that for using AI art is I have given away a lot of control. I've given away a lot of my like what I wanted the game to be. It's necessarily not that, because the game, I've been subjected to the whims of AI, and I haven't been able to make anything I wanted to. So I have been having to kind of release control from a bunch of stuff. For like, maybe the AI can't make me a scene where there's like, for example, this is a real example that I had. I needed a photo booth for the game, like in Amelie movie, where you have this, you go in and you get this strip of photos from the slot.
Yeah.
I wanted AI to make me a photo booth, and it just couldn't. None of the AI systems that I tried could produce a photo booth in the style of the game in this kind of office space environment. Like, it just didn't happen. So I ended up having to do it myself in Photoshop. And then I did manage to do it eventually, but it took me like 6-7 hours to do the scene, which is...
But then
the AI really didn't help me at all in there.
Right, but then you didn't necessarily lose control there. That you wanted
No, I
to
didn't.
retain control, and you gave up.
In there, yes, in there I didn't give up. There's multiple cases where I did give up, and I was I've kind of like have this outline of a story. Like, these are the story beats I want to hit, and then I go in and I try to make a location, and then I just let myself be inspired by the locations that AI just produces to me, because I would spend days and days and days and countless nights just prompting and making hundreds and hundreds of versions of kitchens and bathrooms and parking lots if I wanted something specific. But if I'm more open to inspiration from the images, then I can just do like 10 and pick the best one, and then after the fact think of puzzles, like what could be the puzzle in this scene, like what could the story beats be in this small scene, like what's interesting in this one. And so that's been kind of and that's been more in many AI works that you see online. You have the same kind of symptom where it might look great. It might look that it's very coherent and cohesive piece of art, but then when you think of how it was made, it might be more like this kind of like a improvisational art where you kind of just go into it without expectations and then you end up with something. But if you had this very specific goal that you wanted to reach, it might not work. Like, I couldn't see AI being usable in a scenario where you have to make something that's exactly something that you're looking for. Like, everything has to be controlled precisely. Then it's just a worse tool than like Maya or Blender.
This is a big statement, though, Jussi, because, there is everybody steps in when they think, okay, we need to start to accelerate our game development using AI. And the first thing they do is indeed to replicate their workflow, trying to use AI tools and wanted to retain the control. Now you're saying that's not possible. That's not the state.
It's difficult.
You're learning?
It's difficult. That's what I've learned. It's very difficult to keep control. Of course, there will be these, I think in the future, there will be these companies that do rendering with AI, for example, where the AI does the final image, but the assets, the 3D graphics, all the animations are done by traditional tools, but instead of being ray traced or rasterized, the image is being generated with diffusion. And in those cases, the control is done by training the model, and then everything will match together very nicely when you have this kind of model that you've been building. But in that case, it doesn't really save any money from anybody. It just costs actually more than a traditional graphics pipeline where you can just render with DirectX and you don't need to do the training of the model to get your game running. So I kind of, when you want control, it's costly if you're using AI or not. So then it doesn't become anymore like a question of, do I save money? It becomes a question like, what's the style I want to hit? If you want to hit something that's past the point of current photoreal quality of like current gen graphics, I kind of think that we have hit the peak of what 3D can offer. And the next step towards realism is to do a real-time AI image, like a style transfer to the realistic graphics from the 3D rendered image. On some hardware.
Yeah, because
I
think that is important also to always remember that when we say AI for game development, that could take so many different layers, right, in which AI can help. So what we are discussing right now is a bit more for asset generation, right? That's how I feel. One of the things that you have done, but maybe actually this brings me to another questions that I had, and that is, beyond asset generation, both of being a character, being an environment, how else have you experimented with the AI during your game development?
I've used AI voiceover for like side characters. I think the game will ship with a bunch of AI actors. I do want to get the main cast to be humans, but the game has no budget, and so I need to kind of just talk people into it, and then if nobody wants to join, then it will be fully AI voice. But I hope I get somebody, because the main character, for example, I would like it to be more expressive than what AI can give me. And then I have begun to use more and more ChatGPT for coding. For example, today I use it quite extensively on some functions. I needed to have a function where I can translate the position from world space to local space, but not on a game object in the world, but on like a set of coordinates. Like I have a position and rotation, and I needed to use that to kind of, so it wasn't like a game object in Unity. It was just number data that I needed to use as a local space coordinate system, and then a transfer point to it. I just asked DALL-E, how do I do this? And then it wrote me a function, and I copy pasted it into Visual Studio, and it worked straight out of the box. It just worked. So I've been using it for programming more and more these days.
And so you mentioned AI generated voice, the coding. I was wondering, for example, about AI characters, like where they actually answer based on an AI.
In this project, I haven't done it because I want to have the control with the story. I don't want to lose it, and then it's a free game. All that real-time generation costs money. It's a service that runs on a cloud, and it uses GPUs on some Amazon server, and it costs. With even just like one player, it might be over $10 a month. So I don't want to put myself in a situation where the game is going to bankrupt me in the future when it's just live for years and years and years. So like I haven't done any.
First week of release, shut down.
It's like,
that's it.
But but what I've used AI for the characters in game is that when there are characters that are AI characters, I have used the ChatGPT to rewrite the lines for those characters, so that I've written them once, and then I feed them to ChatGPT, and I ask it specifically to make this sound like a poor AI, and then it adds those kind of weird flavors that it has, where it's overly polite and always apologizing, and has these weird limitations where it can't access some data where clearly it can. So I've kind of just, without trying to mimic it and trying to come up with those lines myself, I've asked ChatGPT to pretend to be an AI assistant that can't tell you something, and then it's been very good at that stuff, like mimicking itself. It's been really good.
So before we move forward, there was another question that I had regarding the whole concept of the game. So the game is a 2D point-and-click adventure, right?
Yeah.
And per se, this is kind of a bit like manufactured scenario, right? So you picked a specific type of game that you would know could be executed using the tool and the knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And we go back to that aspect of control that we were talking about, right? But no, sorry, go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah. And also the topic of the story, the futuristic setting, is also dictated by AI, because back in the summer of 22, when AI was kind of garbled and everything was messed up, and you had 17 fingers, what you could buy was sci-fi scenes where you had robots and weird pipes and weird architecture that didn't make sense, because it didn't need to be realistic. If you tried to make 90s house from the 19th century or something like realistic that people can look at today, it wouldn't look correct. It would be all garbled up. But when you ordered futuristic lounge or futuristic marketplace, it would be this kind of dystopian place that you could believe in. So the setting of the game is picked up by having the least friction with the believability by the stuff that AI made back then. It can now do better with other eras as well, but it's still very good for futuristic scenes where it doesn't need to be realistic, doesn't need to make sense.
Sometimes, I wonder also if this effect is not just due by necessarily the effectiveness of the UI, but rather by the way we as human look and perceive certain things. Like, for example, like when you make objects, they always in some way end up looking better than characters. I don't know if that's because when you get an object, you look at it and you are fine with it. But when you look at a character or a human, then you are looking at his eyes, at the exact aspect ratio of his face, and all these kind of things. And I wonder if in this case, similar things would happen for an environment. Where it's sci-fi, it doesn't need to follow rules. So I'm fine with anything that spits at me. While instead, if it's a modern pretend to be realistic building, it's more me as a human who actually has different expectation in a sense.
Yeah. Humans are really good at picking up patterns and seeing weird things and picking out these kind of, well, of course you can distract the human. Like there's this test with the gorilla going through the basketball field where people just they ask, the question is like how many passes of blue balls there is or something, and then there's a gorilla walking and you can't see it. Of course there's a way to distract people, but it's, you're actually absolutely correct. That's the actual exact phenomenon where you are so primed at looking at human faces, and when it's not exactly right, even if the still frame of the face was perfect, but when it begins to animate, if the musculature doesn't move right, it does. If the facial it doesn't work together, like if you smile without squinting your eyes, you can kind of really tell exactly like that's not a human. So I think that's the same thing with these kind of contemporary locations. A year ago, it was kind of hard to make them realistic and believable, but to make them sci-fi, it wasn't a problem. Like that's where it's like I kind of try to always to find the path of least resistance, just to be able to do something that would look as presentable as possible by just exploiting the limitations of the technologies.
And this makes 100% sense when you look at the scope of this, right? Because you says, okay, I am on a mission. I want to learn how this was with AI, and I want to make a game. So it doesn't necessarily, and I need to find a good match, right? So that's why both the settings and the type of game that you made were manufactured, kind of like almost the best case scenario for things that you could make with AI, more or less, right?
Yeah.
Now, based on all your learnings up to now, what are the things that you could say you could hand over, or let's say suggestions that you could give to other people that are maybe trying to get into this, but they are making not the most exact, the most suitable games like the one you did?
I think that maybe it's like, today AI is much better at making, of course, other scenarios as well, and it has been for a long time, but I've just stuck with this thing. I don't want to kind of flip-flop and change my path all the time, but for other people,
my point was not even to ask you to change it, right? It's more like to other people that might be trying.
I think it's I would still thread kind of carefully when using AI for actual production work, like, because it's still not out of the woods per se. Like, I think it's something it's going to be fairly highly usable in the future. I hope it's going to be something that makes life better for all artists and for all developers. But it's still kind of early ages and early times to see. I think people should experiment with it. I think everybody should see what it does and kind of see if they can in any way use it in their workflows. If there's any gains that they can have from some mundane tasks that kind of bog them down or hold their project and the scope down. If there's something they can kind of help there, it's a good tool to explore and see. But I wouldn't necessarily want everybody to go as hard on it as I have in my project, because to me, having fully AI generated content still feels kind of cheap. It feels like an inferior thing, but that's just maybe me. I don't know how the general population feels. Like to me, if I'm looking at the game and it's a human made game and somebody actually made the art by hand, I feel much more inclined to buy it and kind of explore the beauty of it than if it's like a random generation automated thing that nobody kind of crafted. It's
And then we go back to the perceived value, right,
yeah,
of something. And that is another very, very important aspect that I think that we are moving and trying to be fast and try to be more efficient. But it's, and at the end, even though maybe at some point the ultimate value of what's created is comparable, it's not necessarily something that you can distinguish, but still the perceived value, even of a social media post, even of an image, even or anything else that can be generated, even a 3D asset, is dramatically different. So that's why something, I think that to some extent we want to also raise some warnings. Oh, AI is going to take over. I think there is going to a point, and it's going to come, I think, rather soon, where people are going to be fed up to seeing just overflowing content of any type of sort.
yeah, I agree, and I think like in this case where it's a full game where maybe let's say I'm gonna guess like 25% of the full work is done by AI, and the 75%, which is the programming, animations, user interface, and scripting, and kind of just general layout work and the screenplay and all the kind of setting up of the project, is human labor still. So at any point, if the game was made, so if at any point I would just strip away the backgrounds and do them myself in 3D, the game would be fully human made without any AI in it anymore. So the AI is quite small sliver on top of it. But what you were talking about is this overflow of just AI generated imagery that doesn't have any kind of weight or value in a sense where the information in it is important. It's just surface stuff. Like if you go to some art gallery, if Deviant Art or whatever, and you find 17,000 images created with AI of just dragons and maidens and whatever, and then there's the minority is human generated, the AI stuff quickly becomes this just an obstacle for you from enjoying the real art. And we could go into debate if AI art is art or not. I believe everything is art. It's AI generated images is
Oof,
art.
that's a big statement.
Leaves in the forest are art. Footprints on snow are art. Light switches are art. I believe like anything is art for me. But there's then the value of art. Like what's more valuable? So yeah, that's true. That's what I'm worried about is that there's so much of this AI content. Everybody's exploring, everybody's trying it and pushing stuff out and pushing these images out where there are these just random humans doing random stuff that don't have any kind of meaning or any point. It's going to devaluate AI as a whole. And there's real gains with AI. There's actual really beneficial use cases with AI. And then if we have this torrent of just AI stuff, just making people fed up with it, I'm afraid it's gonna be like this just pushback for everything AI.
I just wanted to have a quick break to remind you that the recording of these episodes and many more great conversation with incredible experts are available on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Just head over to my profile or in the episode description below and pick the platform you prefer. And now, let's get back to the show.
When people are just fed up with just trivializing art or trivializing something and making it like just going into a space and just overflowing it with content that necessarily doesn't add to the value of anything. So it's a complicated issue for sure.
It's very complicated, and I always think like there is what is the solution, and solution is like we can think of a society solution, right? We can think like what can we as teams, organization, like look at the bigger governments. That is one way of looking, and the other way is what can I as an individual do, and how can I kind of like contribute to this conversation. So I mean, this podcast is an idea of how to bring up these topics and discuss them, and also believe that there is still, despite the competition, there is still space for craft, and that could be in many different ways, right? It could be from still creating videos, or let's say not thinking that you need to push more content because others are. So sticking to your own, let's say, value regarding on what the other is doing. But I'm curious if, regarding this topic about overflowing AI content and pushback, there is something that you see as an individual, as a creator, as an artist, as a developer, something that you could do.
Would you mean like what could be like in my opinion, what do you mean, like what would be acceptable use of AI in my mind, or what could be something that I could do to kind of help the situation somehow?
Yes. So to not make it that the AI is seen as this evil or overfloods our screen, or so. What's maybe your personal approach?
Yeah, I think it helps when AI is used as a means to an end, where it's used as a part of something to enable something else. When you talk about these images and talk about these little snippets that we see on Twitter and elsewhere, there is no use for this work that's been produced. There is no use for these still frames of something, or of people in cafeterias or in shops or somewhere. There is no end use for this. It's kind of useless in my mind. But when it's used to tell a story, for example, if somebody has their lifelong dream of making a film and they have this really nice story they always wanted to tell, but they lack the funding or they lack the environment where to make movies, if they used AI generative tools to tell this story, then the AI would be enabling that person to tell the story, and the story would be the end result, and AI is just the enabler or the fuel to get there. And in that case, I believe that AI is, in fact, valuable, because it's not the AI stuff that we're looking at, it's the what it enabled.
Right.
And I think that's like I think that stuff is coming for sure. It just takes time, and it's easy to make random images and post them because it takes 20 seconds to make an image in Midjourney, or actually 4 images. But then it doesn't take 20, it takes half a year or a year to make a movie or to make a book or to make something, whatever it would be. Mm-hmm. And I think AI has its place as a tool, but of course it needs to be ethical when it's used as a tool. It can be based on illegal data sets. But I think
that is
a
whole other conversation.
Yeah, and I've been keeping myself out of it by design. Like, I didn't want to. This project is not about exploring the ethics. What I'm running, it's about thinking of a world where ethics are just fine and it's okay to use these tools.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because those tools are. It's just a matter of time when AI tools come out that are acceptable and are legal and are fine, and everybody is just like, we can't say anything about it. It's just like they are fine, and everybody begins to use them. Even no matter what we think about the value of the AI generated stuff, it's going to be here, and everybody's going to be using it. Like, there will be games that have everything done with AI, the code, the storylines, the character designs, everything full AI, and that's gonna hit those games are gonna hit the marketplace, and we don't yet know if they're gonna be any good or bad or what they're gonna be. So it's I think, like, it might be that in 5 years you can't do anything without using AI because it's not worth it. Like, it's too expensive. I don't know. But that's kind of the reality I wanted to explore with this project. Like, what would living in that future be?
And one of the things that I want to ask, right, after this, let's say now, it's a continuous journey, right? It's always moving forward because the game is not finished yet, as we were talking about. One question is maybe, like, after so long you've been working on it, right? Is there anything that you would do differently?
I don't know. I've kind of enjoyed the process because it's been quite organic and it's been quite loose in a sense that I haven't set myself to rigid goals or the project for the project itself either to rigid goals. So I don't know if there would be anything I would do different.
I mean, the fact you're quite thinking about it, it means that sometimes you have basically no big regret, because sometimes there is a moment where you say, yeah, this thing, I should have never done it. I should have never tried to do X or do Y. So probably the fact you're thinking, maybe it seems like probably is also another important thing. It's about enjoying the process and enjoying the learning throughout.
Yeah, and I don't see any big regrets with the project. Like if there was a decision I made that was bad, like I've been quite. It's been quite like it's been quite this kind of journey of like trying to just doing things that I find the most interesting at that time. So it's always been something I have never went into do something like I wouldn't enjoy doing. Like I always just waited for inspiration to kind of grab me and okay, tonight I'm gonna make this scene and do this puzzle or do this script or this feature. And it's always been really, really interesting. And it's not just focused on AI. I've also been doing accessibility, like trying to think of how would this game be played if somebody was blind? How would a blind person be able to play a point-and-click adventure? And I've been thinking about it quite extensively. And then also people who can't read, who are illiterate. Like I have a 7-year-old daughter who can't read yet. And so like I tried to make the game so that she can play it. So she doesn't need to know anything about text, but she can still enjoy the full game, where every text snippet is readable. And I've been also making it in a way where it can be translated, like every text is in a database that can be localized to any language. And so there's many of these topics that I find really interesting in addition to just exploring AI. Even if I said that AI art to me is trivial and worthless, I do enjoy the tech and I do enjoy looking at how the tools develop and what people are building, because I'm really interested in that kind of development of AI and seeing what's possible with just computers. It's really interesting to me to see how this tech evolves.
And maybe the other point is, for other people that are maybe non-developers and they do have a deep interest still in this technology, right? And they might be also be involved in game development, but not necessarily in the coding, let's say, or maybe in the 3D art. So maybe the questions is, are there some ways in which you think maybe it's not straightforward of how these other figures involved in the game development could still use AI as part of their workflow, or maybe to augment what they could do? I'm talking about script writers, maybe product managers, or designers. Is there something that comes to mind?
I'm pretty sure AI is a really producing for sure. I think AI can become quite a good producer. I'm hoping that somebody's working on an AI producing tool that would be able to help a producer break down a project and track a project, because that's something that it's not pure math, it's more of an art form. But it would be nice to have this kind of like a baseline of just good management, because in some project when a producer is not very who don't maybe know how to produce properly, it ends up hurting everybody quite a bit. So it would be nice to have this kind of safety net, this kind of lift of a baseline where you have a tool like this virtual producer that you can then utilize, and then that would help producers, poor producers, be better at their work. Of course, good producers wouldn't need that tool, but it would be like a really good savior for small teams that have bad producers to work better. And then
we end up this, because this is a very slippery slope, right? Because it says like, okay, we don't need producer anymore. Now we have an AI producer. What's your take on that replacement storyline that's been circulated?
I kind of think like when people, like I have a couple of friends who are really afraid of big studios pushing out the craft people from the work. But I have a theory where AI will eventually be used by the craft people to push the big studios out of work. So I think that's going to be the flip side, where AI is actually going to enable small teams of people to produce work that they see that, okay, we don't need the studio anymore. We don't need that kind of big money machine, because the studios provide the money. That's their moat. Everybody needs to have like this competitive edge, and big studios, the competitive edge is that they have all the money in the world they can put on a project. But what if the work became so affordable that small people could just do stuff themselves, like small creators, like 12 people teams could do like a full-on animated movie by automating stuff they don't have time to do, but they could just do all the like the kind of the viz dev and all that, all the screenplays and all that stuff, all the important stuff, and then AI would just produce this movie for them. I think that's a more realistic scenario. But coming back to the point of like what could these other team members use AI for, I think AI is a really good exploration tool for what you don't want. Like there is this big chunk of work that's been produced everywhere is just explorations into bad ideas, explorations into dead ends. Like when you are probing the waters of what you want to do, it might take you a month to go through bad options to land on the good one. And AI can make landing on those bad options really fast. Like I realized with like just figuring out name for this game project that I'm working on that we eventually ended up calling Echoes of Somewhere, I used AI to tell me like 500 different names. And all of them were horrible. But all of those kind of steered me towards the correct name of like giving me these alternative like horrible names. And then it kind of pushed me into, or I did it with a friend who's like the story consultant on the project. We did it together. Like we just used AI to prompt names and names and names, and then we just went through this phone call of together, like trying to figure out why don't we like these names. And by doing that, we figured out the flip of the coin, where it's like these are the things we like about names. And then we came up with the correct name. So even if AI was used just to make throwaway work, it would have taken us forever to come up with all those bad names ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, and this is the, let's say, simplest example, but overall, I think we can generalize more of, in the case of early design and the early prototyping of concepts. That is also something that, again, when you start creating an environment, when you have an image and then you can feel it, maybe you don't need to create a full 3D environment before realizing that that's actually not a good idea, that it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I think that totally from the early design and storyboarding, and that is absolutely super valuable.
And I do think that by the end, when you are kind of gone through all these bad ideas, you still are better off using like an actual human concept artist to then get to the final look. But it's better for the mental health of everybody to go through those bad options with a machine and then going to the good option with humans. Because
this is a very fair.
It's
fair point.
It's very, very stressful to make concepts and do work and be said no 1,000 times. And then, like there was this anecdote about this design of the Ashoka Tano ship, where the concept artist who made the ship drew, let's say, 20 concepts, and then drew 100 more, and then drew concepts for 3 months. And was just, everything came back with a no. And then once this, like almost half a year of just doing ship designs was over, the directors ended up with like the 4th ship that they designed. And it meant that they had drawn like 300 ships that were just trashed. And that work could have been done by an AI, and this guy wouldn't have burned out. Like he would have stayed sane. Of course, he would have not been employed for like 3 months, but I don't know if that's an employment you really want to go through when it kind of just breaks you by the end.
Absolutely. You got a good point. So now, while we kind of like go towards the end of this conversation, I also wanted to point out one thing. You mentioned that at the beginning, you had this approach where you started this realization, when you started sharing what you have created, and that resonated with people. So there was a lot of attention, a lot of interest. Now, what has been the impact of you creating and curating this blog, basically this development blog, on your own career?
it's brought me a lot of visibility, but not doing what I really do. It hasn't brought me visibility as a game designer or a VFX artist or a 3D artist. But it has just given me like a platform, so to speak. I've gone to been featured on like blogs or magazines that I wouldn't have otherwise. So it's just given me kind of brand recognition, if that's something that could be said of a human. But professionally, how it has helped with my actual day-to-day career it's just in no way, shape, or form.
That's really interesting because I would have expected otherwise. I mean,
it hasn't.
my first guess.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, because so you have been doing something with AI that was somehow related. That was very related to what you do, right?
Yeah.
As indeed creating games. But now you're telling me that that was not the case, that it felt like there was a disconnect before what you really do and what you were sharing about
Yes.
that people were seeing or maybe interpreting. How was that?
Yeah. In my day job, I don't have any use for AI. I don't use AI at all at work or any AI tools. I don't use ChatGPT or Claude or any upscale tools or any style transfer stuff. There is no, like I'm talking about generative AI. Machine learning is a different thing. It's everywhere in software these days. You can't be without using it, but it's a different thing than generative AI. So there's no practical use for generative AI, and it hasn't, like, I don't think that these escapades into this AI have made a difference in my day-to-day work. It's, if any, it's been like, I don't want to say negative, but it has sometimes has diverted my attention a little bit away from my day job.
It's like a distraction.
Yeah, not in a way that's been destructive to the work, but in a way where I've been speaking about AI in some conference in France for 3 days, and then I haven't been working on those 3 days. So it's been a leave of absence from work. So that's sort of a negative effect it has had, but it hasn't had any. Like that's the funny thing. Like, I don't think companies are really ready yet to utilize AI to its full extent. Everybody's looking into it like circling around it like a cat around a hot porridge, but nobody's been jumping into it with, like, none of the big players at least. I don't think anybody wants to be the first. I think there might be at some point when somebody does it, then there's like a frenzy of everybody doing it. Like, it's just like this. Everybody's waiting for it to happen, but it hasn't happened yet.
Or, as you mentioned, that you brought up also an interesting perspective, being the small team start creating something that is incredible, and then the big teams, like the very big teams at that point, feel threatened. And it's like,
yeah,
okay, there is also an interesting dynamic where instead of being the giants that embrace it first, that at this point, I think you're very much right. It's unlikely in that sense. It's going to be the underdogs, the indie teams that are going to create something incredible.
And even if the giants endorsed it, like, if there might be at this moment some team making a 60 million game using AI, and it's going to be out in 27, and we don't know. But the AAA games take 5-6 years to make. So even if people have been using AI from the first day it released, the first possible date for a release from 2022 is 2027 using AI tech.
Right. So we gotta wait. So we better place the echoes of somewhere first.
Yeah. So small teams of 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 people are going to be releasing first, and there is, of course, I'm hopeful that using AI will enable small teams to make games that are just amazing, like amazing little indie gems that otherwise wouldn't have been made will get made. But there will be also a ton of crap, as we see with the images where people just post stuff. Internet is full of AI generated images that don't add any. I think it's going to happen with games and movies and everything. Like, people are just going to push out AI generated fluff, and it always happens when things get more democratized, that the amount of crap also increases exponentially.
And you know what is my biggest concern is that sometimes will not be able to clearly see when they were AI generated. So that we will need to go through the consumption of that crap in some way,
Yeah,
in order
and
without
you
being
can't.
labeled.
Yeah, and you can't really tell from the screenshots if something is crap or not. If there's 1,000 games and 5 of them are the best games you ever played, how are you ever going to find those 5? Like, what kind of a storefront do we need to make to be able to find that stuff? YouTube is, though, a good example of a platform where you have hundreds of thousands of clips, millions of clips. And it's sharing those to users so that they are kind of okay with it all the time. Like when I go to YouTube, I have content that interests me, served to me every day, and some new random things here and there sprinkled in the middle. So I think YouTube is a good sharing algorithm of content. So that kind of sharing needs to happen for games as well, where you have access to these great games from the mountain of crap.
Yeah, the definition of storefront then gets very broad, I think, because it is more like the social, the digital impression that you get around you. So at that point, the storefront is your phone, is the news that you read, and I think that the conversation gets very, very broad. But I think that's exciting that we are here and we bring up these topics because I think it's very, very important to start discussing and making people aware of let's say some of the things that are happening in that sense. So I wanted to conclude a bit asking basically what's next for you, for Echoes of Somewhere. Will you keep experimenting and publishing new chapters? Where is this headed?
Yeah. What I want to do next is I want to I have done some additional gameplay to the demo a little bit on the areas where the demo is played. So I want to button that up and make it polished and update and push a demo version to Steam. So currently the game is only on itch.io, but I do want to get the demo to Steam as well. But I have done some updates to the location, so I kind of want to have it the latest and greatest version. But then after that, I kind of have taken a little bit time off from constant updates online. So the pace of blog posts have gone down, and I've kind of reoriented my limited time more towards development of the game and less towards documentation, because I kind of feel that the well is beginning to be quite dry on how many times you can show how to do a projection mapped scene from from image generated from AI and a character. The content doesn't really change. It's more of just the same and the same and the same.
Yeah.
So I think the blog has sort of fulfilled its use, and I don't want to have it become spam. So I'm just kind of doing more work behind the scenes, and then when I have something meaningful to post, I will then post it instead of just posting for the sake of posting. By the end of the last year, it just was more of this like, okay, it's Sunday, I need to write a new blog post for next week. And then it kind of became this printing press where I just kind of, regardless of what I wrote about, I just need to write every week. So I kind of taken a little bit of its time off from that, because that also takes time, and it's a time away from the development of the actual game.
No, absolutely. And actually, I really appreciate also this approach, and I think people that are listening as well, taking a step back, and it's not just for the sake of producing content, but and stop spamming. I think it's good to maybe focus on other things and maybe bundle a concept from a broader perspective instead of giving the weekly, oh, today I created this environment. It was like the 3, 4, 5 that I've created in the past.
Yeah.
And
Because
so when can we expect the... sorry, finish.
Yeah. Just like even if I wouldn't redirect the time saved from the posting to the game, it would go to like spending more time on the weekend with the kids or something like that.
That's a very, very good reason. Yeah. That sounds like an amazing reason. I can totally relate. So when can we expect the game to hit Steam then?
I wouldn't want to promise anything, but it's very close. It's only missing one song. There is this scene where you can hear singing through the walls. And I just need to record that singing, and then that's pretty much it. But I don't want to use AI for that. I want to use like an actual singer. So it will be like a real human, because the the same voice will do a lot of voice work on the like a dialogue work as well. So I don't know if there would be an AI that could give me like a good singing and then also dialogue with the exact same consistency. So it's just easier to have a human. And quite conveniently, I have a human who sings living right in my home. so we just need to find some time with the wife to do the recording. But after that, it's quite ready to go. But I still have to kind of struggle a little bit with how to put stuff to Steam, so that if you click on the download link on a Mac, you get the Mac version, and the PC version. It's the interface, how Steam works is so alien to me. I need to ask somebody to help, but I just haven't bothered.
I'm very sure you will figure it out. I'm very sure you'll figure it out.
I'm sure too.
It was a great to have you here. I think I learned a lot, and I believe that also people that have listened to this have found inspiration and direction in the way they experiment with AI. So thank you very much, and best of luck for the launch of Because of Somewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening in. If you enjoyed the conversation, remember to head to YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts for more insightful conversation revolving around XR and AI. And if you like the show, please leave a rating on Spotify. It really helps me keep doing this and shine the spotlights on the latest and greatest founders and creative in XR and AI. Till next time.